Trigger warning. Think for yourself. Question authority. Say what you think. Speak the damn truth.
So, Daryl, when was the last time at 2 in the morning you had a hankering to go to Burger King and get the double Whopper deal?
Well, usually that probably ended when Burger King got rid of their jalapeno poppers. That was my favorite thing. And so it's been a few years for the Burger King. As far as the middle of the night cravings, yeah, I've been doing pretty good with that. But I've spent about 15 years trying to get my weight and my eating under control. And when I was younger, when my second child was born, Steve, I was working waste management. I was garbage man throwing trash, so it's like I could eat hot dogs for breakfast from a gas station and McDonald's for lunch and drink pop all day long and come home and eat all day because I was very active. And then it seemed like once I didn't work at waste management anymore, funny, I was fired because I had a box of hot tamales underneath my driver's seat in my work truck. And I guess I didn't clean it enough, and that was the excuse I used. So I went from there to doing front load commercials. So now I'm driving and all day long. I'm not active, but I was making more money. So Chrissy, she didn't have to work. Coming home having 5-course meals every night. I also quit smoking cigarettes, so that kind of played into it also. And
what did you get up to weight wise?
When I was at Waste Management, let's see, I'm about, then I was 6'6", 6'7", which I'm 6'7" now, and I weighed about 185, 190, and within a year I shot up to almost 300 pounds.
Wow, I didn't know you were that.
I gained about 100 pounds that year, when I quit being active, and I was still eating whatever I wanted to eat. And so right about then is when I started trying to lose weight. First I tried the Slim Fast diet, and that didn't seem like it worked out too well because I would, eat this, chocolate milk, and I'd still be hungry. So I tried that for a while. Then I tried the new thing of the no fat or low fat diet, where I was buying everything that said low fat or no fat, but still that didn't work. I tried the portion sizes where I would eat 5 small meals a day, but that just left me hungry every time I got done eating. So I wouldn't feel satisfied. So my 5 small meals would expand to 5 large meals. So that didn't help me. I started lifting weights. I started working out about 13 years ago, and that helped a lot because at this time I was, still, 25 years old, and I actually put on some good muscle weight, and my overall fat came down. My muscle, I gained muscle. I got an interesting body. It reacts well to stimuli, whether it's eating healthy or eating unhealthy or exercising or not exercising. My body seems to react whatever I'm doing to it. So I'm lucky there. Some people do have issues with thyroid disorder and whatnot, where no matter what they do, they can't lose weight. But yeah, I have lots of now I'm working on the ketogenic diet, which is a high fat diet, almost no carbs. I get all my carbs from vegetables and whatnot, which don't really need to count those per se because they're healthy carbs. But definitely no grains, no pastas, no rice, no breads, no cereal, stuff like no chips, so it's not easy to try to cut back on the beer, which is, hard. So
you've eliminated every staple of American diet though.
Yeah.
A bowl of pasta for your main course, cereal for breakfast.
No, I eat eggs and bacon and cheese and burgers with no buns. And yeah, I've lost 25 pounds steadily, about 1 to 2 pounds a week steadily for about 2 months now, 3 months I've been doing this. Now, I did go off the ketogenic diet there for a while just because those cravings of carbohydrates kicked back in. I'm eating chips and eating burgers with a bun on it, and drinking way too much beer because I like beer, so but I gained a little bit, like a couple pounds, but then I went back. And so right now, I'm trying to get back into full on keto, and you can do blood tests for keto. It's the same thing as testing your blood sugar. There's a chart that you want to, keep your blood sugar down in this level and your ketone level up in this level, and it takes a while to get up there. But I've noticed on the ketogenic diet is I can go all day, a 24-hour period without the sugar crashes, the feeling weak, and I have steady energy. And I know you've had some issues with sugar, so
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. One of the problems you're talking about is I get the super hungry for something salty, super hungry for
mhm,
something sugary, and it just shifts, and it's usually a horrible time, like right before bed. But yeah, the sugar thing. I had a time where I was at work, I was feeling lightheaded and kind of dizzy and out of it, and it went away. And then a
mhm,
few months later, it came back, and finally I went to the doctor and said, "Do I have something neurological going on? My legs feeling tingly and actually feeling like cold."
mhm, mhm,
And he said, "Well, we got to do your basic test first." And he calls me the next day. I actually got a call when I was in church. He said, "You got to do another blood test, and this time you need to fast." And my sugar was 400 something.
mhm.
So went in there and turned out my A1C was 10.2, which is supposed to be around five something, five
Yeah.
to six, and my sugar was about 280 or so,
Mhm,
fasting. So, so basically, and this is different. I had to change my whole lifestyle on this because if you remember growing up, I was always skinny. I was always underweight. I would try to fatten myself up.
mhm.
I have one of those little Tony's pizzas an hour before bed as like, good night snack.
Yeah.
And, and same thing, around a certain age, I got a more sit down job and I quit doing like the karate. I was doing that all the time, quit doing that.
Mhm.
And then just genetics of time. You hit 30 and, your
Yeah.
metabolism, everything catches up. You
Mhm.
become your parents.
Yeah.
And so I tried to work out. I tried to work out. I ended up hurting my arms because I was going crazy before I turned 30. Tried
Mhm.
to work out again crazy before I turned 40, and I ended up hurting my sciatus. I can't say that
Yeah.
word,
Your
but
sciatic nerve
yeah, I
area.
hurt
Yeah.
that where I
Swollen
couldn't
disc. Mhm.
sit down for a
Mhm.
while. And then I found with the workout thing is I go crazy at it, and then I couldn't go for a couple of days, 4 or 5 days, and my body would punish me.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, you tried to work out, now you stopped working out, now you need to gain more weight.
Yeah. Right.
So, but I peaked at about 218, maybe 220,
Mhm.
and then I got this diabetes diagnosis, and I just right away I instantly cut all my carbs, and I just did basically like doubled up veggie portions like crazy.
Right.
And then I learned eventually that you got to do a little bit, a little more protein, a little more of this,
Mhm.
what carbs you can get away with. But I went from 220 down to about 195,
Mhm.
and over time, over 5 6 months, my sugar's testing normal now,
That's good.
and my A1C is 5.9.
Okay.
But if I eat a slice of cake or something, it spikes up.
Mhm.
So I know I can't get away with that kind of stuff.
Right.
But and I know in probably 10, 15 years, I'm probably going to have to go on a pill or something. But it's kind of interesting as you become so aware of how bad our diets are.
Yeah.
Offices have cake, pizza parties. Everywhere you turn around, there's
Mhm.
stuff you can't eat.
Yeah. Even for like the ketogenic diet that I'm on, you would think that a high fat, low carb, moderate protein would be easy, but it's really not because I mean
How do you go to restaurants?
you go to a restaurant and I can order like salmon, with some vegetables, but it's like if you're at work, you go to a gas station and I mean you're limited to beef jerky, which is outrageously high at gas stations.
Yeah.
Um, Pork rinds, which is
Oh yeah.
loaded with MSG, which MSG, monosodium glutamate, that spikes your insulin levels quicker than sugar.
Oh, I was
So
gonna
you
say.
got to avoid the MSG. So I can't even have the pork rind. So it's really what I find sometimes is like cheese sticks sometimes, but uh, just like the single serve, cheese that you might find at a gas station. But it's very hard to eat on the road. So I'm finding eating at home is the best way for me to kind of control whatever I do. And Um,
Once in a while, I find a gem. I found it was a pickle wrapped with ham and just a little bit of sour cream on it.
hmm,
And it was like 5 of these in the package, and it's like wow. And the guy looks at me like I'm nuts because I got excited over finding this thing, and
I
it was
remember.
just a slice of ham wrapped up, and it's
Hmm.
got that's another thing, can't control what kind of ham is it. Is this gelatin sugar ham,
Right.
gelatin nothing ham filler, or is
Hmm.
it something high quality?
Yeah.
Speaking of quality, is there any difference really? I mean, you see organic, and I see a higher price tag.
Well, we've been eating organic food now for about 8 or 9 years, roughly, maybe 7. On the low end. I didn't mark the calendar like this is when we started, but the one thing I've noticed is the taste of food is better. When we first switched over, we did like side by side comparisons, like the egg yolks, with much brighter, vibrant colors, and they taste better. Um, the vegetables tasted better. The fruits tasted better. The meats tasted better. The milk was, off the chart, much better flavor. The cheese, much better flavor. Now the price wise, yeah, if you want to eat organic Pop Tarts and have organic pop and organic candy, you are going to pay, 3 to 4 times as much. But if you stick to a high produce, moderate amount of protein, animal protein, uh, style of eating, you're really not going to spend that much more money. Like a head of organic lettuce versus conventional lettuce, you're only going to spend another 20 cents. It's
So
not
they
that
get
big of
you
a
with
deal.
the prepared products and the meat, the
Yeah, the
protein.
prepared products. I mean, they have frozen dinners. They have, processed organic food, which I just think is absurd. But that's where you're going to pay the extra, $5 for a pot pie versus the old classic banquet styles for, less than $1.
Like a dollar, yeah,
Yeah, and I love those, growing up, and
yeah.
but it's the one thing I noticed as far as health wise. My kids every year at the beginning of school, they would get sick that first week of school. They'd have like
Okay,
a stomach bug or a cold, and they would
new
usually,
exposures.
yeah, overexposure. But I've noticed since we switched to organic, um, my kids haven't gotten sick, and I haven't gotten sick, and my wife hasn't gotten sick. And I used to get the flu or a cold like once a year. Um, hasn't happened,
It's
and
interesting. I wish there was a way you could measure this, the way you could
mhm.
say this.
Yep,
You'd
yeah.
market it, and they'd definitely be after you for this.
Like I've even noticed stuff like if I get a cut, it heals. It's healed quicker. So I don't know if the organic food or it's the cutting out the processed sugars, the processed foods. Like we don't drink pop in this house, like ever.
Yeah.
Not even like the real sugar. We don't drink no pop. It's
Now you
water.
guys were poor, don't you guys got those gallon jugs of brightly colored water? Yeah, that's that's in the freezer there next to the milk and the juice, and I don't
Yeah.
know if you guys typically used to get those or not, but
Hmm.
that's like what nutritional value is that for kids?
Oh, zero. It's all sugar. Like orange, even orange juice. If you think you want to get like the simply orange brand, which is like a
The
really
gas
good,
station orange juice.
or even that, like you know, the Tropicana and all this.
Okay, so the more premium.
Even that, it's all sugar. I mean, you could say, oh, there's vitamin C. Well, you can get vitamin C from eating an orange, and then you get the fiber that goes along with it. But even so, that's still a lot of sugar you're putting into your body. And it's the thing with the breads and the pastas and uh, the rice. All of that turns into sugar after it goes through your digestive
Yeah,
system.
I've
Yeah,
that's one
and
thing I've learned. It's actually
mhm,
worse than white sugar, even though white sugar is bad. But yeah,
mhm, yeah, yeah. And there's actually some foods that are higher on the glycemic index than pure sugar, and I think that's interesting also. Like white bread is a perfect example. It spikes your sugar faster than sugar.
the grilled cheese sandwiches is like a
Hmm.
staple. That's the bread that every kid has in their lunch when they're
Well, like for example, my meal today was 2 burger patties. Frozen organic, grass-fed burger patties with uh, 2 eggs, fried in butter over easy, with about 5 strips of, thick cut organic, bacon.
no sodium nitrates. Are those
Nope.
good for you? Or
You know, I don't.
I
I
don't know.
can't speak to that either. I don't know, but I try to do the best I can. But you can still get fat and overweight eating organic food.
Yeah,
You might
my
get.
thing, what I've noticed too is the quantity seemed to be the biggest
Mhm,
factor. You got to deal with what's good for your body, but it seems like everything, kind of like the Weight Watchers thing. It's more the moderation.
mhm.
The types and everything is a factor, but I think Americans need to cut out about half to, at least half the food they eat.
Yeah, yeah. It's there's a lot of conflicting science with the like you're talking like the calories in versus calories out. And
Yeah.
I've seen hundreds of hours of documentaries where they support that theory because they base it off of laws of thermodynamics, and then I've seen other theories where they actually prove it wrong because it's about metabolism. If you get your body trained on burning a high fat like the ketogenic diet, you can eat a ridiculous amount of calories. Like a handful of macadamia nuts is several hundred calories, and that's a snack.
Mhm.
Fats. One tablespoon of coconut oil or butter or olive oil is 14 grams of fat, so that's 96 calories for 1 tablespoon. You know,
Hmm.
I have 2 tablespoons of butter when I cook eggs, or I'll use 2 tablespoons of coconut oil when I make my burger, and it adds up quickly.
You
Uh,
think 2 eggs is actually, you might say, yeah, you got a spoon of butter, but
mhm.
for a person your size, that's not a lot of
I
food.
actually eat about 4 eggs every day for
Okay.
breakfast, along with four slices of bacon. But I come home and we do a smoothie with our
Yeah.
Vitamix, and we put hemp heart seeds in there, flax seeds, chia seeds, water, ice, kale, spinach, and I put avocado oil in there also to bind it. It's kind of like an MCT oil, a medium
Okay.
chain
Sounds
triglyceride.
like you got a science experiment going
Yeah,
there.
yeah, because your body absorbs the nutrients of a green smoothie if it's got some fat to clean too.
Okay.
So you
Sounds
put,
like things that just are not in your 1950. I'm going to call it the American diet from like starting from 1950. Something you'd see it on Leave It to Beaver.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's trial and error.
It's
Before I
what you
got
can
into
stick
this,
with it.
before we got in heavy into the eating organic food, there was a product called Ally. I don't know if you remember that product or not. Where it was, there's been similar ones like this where you take a pill before a meal, or sometimes you take the pill right after a meal, and it isolates the fat in this
Okay.
cocoon of oil or whatever, and it so your body doesn't absorb the fat; it goes right out. So I've got horror stories on that. Take that pill and have Taco Bell, and um, yeah, don't do that. It's not pleasant because it just it's heavy cases of diarrhea because it
Oh,
isolates
yeah.
everything that's not good for you, and it just goes immediately out.
I was gonna say
And
that kind of sounded good until you said that part.
yeah, no, it's not fun. It's a gimmick. It's a gimmick. It's not. It
Well, what
literally
was the?
comes.
There was some diet, the diet shakes, and I'm trying to remember. It was the guy who played Mr. Wilson, the original one on Dennis the Menace. He died
Hmm,
from these shakes,
hmm,
drinking exclusive. I think they cut out carbs 100% out of your diet, basically. I'll
hmm.
have to talk with you off camera here when I
Hmm.
remember what that was.
Yeah,
It was
yeah, because
earlier Slim Fast.
yeah, because SlimFast, I remember SlimFast was still high in carbs,
Okay,
protein.
you don't
It
know, you
was
haven't heard of it, so
no, I
yeah.
haven't heard of that, but I do know that I don't know. I've watched a lot of documentaries and done a lot of research where many people have said out of the three macronutrients, which fat, protein, carbohydrates, the one that the human body does not need to survive is carbohydrates.
Hmm.
And then people say, well, your brain burns glucose, so you need some carbohydrates. Well, they've done scientific studies that show on a ketogenic diet, your body actually starts to take some of the protein and transform that into glucose, where
Now, is there
you
there's
can live off of that.
from what I understand too, there's just to counter a little bit is there's also a cost. Is there some cost to that
Yeah,
as
yeah.
far as like bone or nutrition?
No, actually, the initial cost of switching over to a high fat diet is what they call a keto flu,
I mean,
where you
from what,
feel.
the process your body does to, the convert protein to
Mhm.
carb.
Yeah, because it takes a couple weeks for your body to create these ketone bodies. The ketone bodies is what is able to metabolize all this fat and energy, and then
Mm.
when you're in between meals, it can burn your body fat. But in that in between period of that 2 weeks, you're going to feel weak, you're going to feel lethargic, you're going to feel nauseous, lightheaded, dizzy. So you're going to, they call it the keto flu. It's very miserable. But there are
Yeah.
ways where you can slowly get into that, which is, take your 300, your 300 grams of carbs a day on the typical American diet and cut that down next week by 200 grams, next week by 200 grams, and slowly increase your fats. And I should say, as far as the ketogenic diet, the range is about 65 to 75% fats, 15 to 20% protein, and about 5 to 10% of carbohydrates. So you want about 50 grams of protein just to maintain your body's function, and then large amounts of fat. Now, if you're trying to lose weight, you want to cut that down to where you're like for me, I'm trying to lose weight, so I want to get to about 1,400 calories a day. And it
Okay.
seems like, well, that's not a whole lot. Well, when you eat a lot of fat and a moderate amount of protein, it takes a while for your body to burn that fat, so you can go much longer through the day without feeling hungry again. And that's the first thing I noticed when I switched to ketogenic diet is I never had cravings again, even for potato chips, which has always been my Achilles heel. I never would crave potato chips. And I
Well,
don't
plus
want
if
to.
you get 3 months into that, from what I understand, you're like I'm a big salt. I put salt on everything, and I love it.
Salt
But
is
I keep on
actually good
getting
for you.
told if I go 3 weeks, 3 months, something like that, I can actually make myself accustomed to lower salt levels.
Hmm.
And I was like, BS, BS. But then sugar, I found where now I taste sugar in everything
Hmm.
because I've been avoiding sugar like
Hmm.
crazy, and I was never into it. But now that I get, I accidentally sip my wife's coffee with dessert. Starbucks, I call them dessert coffees.
Hmm.
And man, it's like, oh, it doesn't taste good at all. Kind of like you had talked about revisiting fast food. You have
Yeah.
that craving for those McDonald's fries, especially the old beef fat ones, and
Hmm.
like a Big Mac or a Whopper or something would be
Yeah.
great now. And I've done it to where I've been 3, 4 months off of that, and I go to taste it, and I end up throwing it away.
Hmm.
It's just not.
Hmm.
I mean, have you experienced similar with
I've
trying to go back to the American diet?
Yeah, I've done that with just the simple eating organic food,
Oh
and
wow! So
enjoying the flavor of that, and then I try something, and it's like,
like a steak at Big Boy or
yeah,
something.
it's you can almost taste the sadness in the cow. And it's just there's a big difference there, and but yeah, I've noticed a huge difference. Like my coffee, I don't put sugar in my coffee. I use stevia, which
Okay.
I use the liquid dropper stevia, not the
Oh,
granulated stevia, because the granulated stevia, which I was irritated by this when I wanted to trans,
okay.
you know, transfer over to stevia, was they use a lot of dextrose and sucrose, which is
Thanks.
that's
So
corn
that's
sugar. That's
okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's not even real stevia. Stevia is an extract from a leaf. So you got to
That's
get the
good to
liquid
know.
the liquid form with the dropper, and I put about 5 drops in my coffee. And I use heavy cream. Sometimes I'll put butter and cream in my coffee, and they call it bulletproof coffee. I don't know why, but it's pretty good. But I've gotten used
I
to
never heard of that one.
no sugar. Yeah, yeah. It's the bulletproof coffee because it's foolproof for the ketogenic diet. You're getting a high dose of fat. You're getting like 2 tablespoons of fat in your coffee. So you're talking right there is like 180 calories in your coffee, and you can go 7, 8 hours before you feel hungry or you feel like you need to eat. And there's
Huh.
no sugar, no carbs. So it's a good little trick, But the ketogenic diet is the one thing I'm on, and I'm finding good success because I can eat the food that I like to eat. Um, I can
I
have.
guess that's probably the takeaway. The big takeaway is, for me, it was quantity.
Hmm.
Got to cut the quantity out.
Hmm.
I love butter. But I've discovered like I just use like half of everything I use
Hmm.
as a general rule.
Yeah.
And then I try to make vegetables my main course
Hmm.
everywhere I go.
Yeah.
And I've discovered that suddenly that Monte Cristo thing, whatever it is, with the donut around a sandwich,
Yeah.
is it's
Hmm.
just way too heavy. I don't like it.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah,
I've had that before. It's good, but it's very heavy.
and that's just I want a coating around it. I don't want it in a big ball around
Mhm.
it. So
Yeah.
I've done better.
Now I've tried the Dr. Furman diet also, which he has a book called Eat to Live, and this is a strictly vegetarian-based diet where you can literally eat all the vegetables in the world that you want, any quantity you want, and he's got his own pyramid. Now this is a doctor who's done he has thousands of case studies where he's reversed diabetes, type 2, and mitigated the effects of type 1 diabetes. He's also reversed heart disease and autoimmune disease, a lot of things that this high vegetable diet
Mhm.
he's found really help people. It's an interesting study. I've actually tried it for a while, but I noticed that I couldn't sustain it for that long.
Yeah.
My cravings for not only carbs, but my cravings for fats, my cravings for protein and meats started coming back. I did start feeling like I had lower energy. I did lose some weight initially, but I think that's with any diet. When you start a diet, you're more eager, you're more strict, you're
Yeah.
excited, it's new, and everyone always loses like 10 pounds in the first week, and that's mostly water weight. Whenever you switch to something, you're going to let go of some of your water weight, especially if you cut out sugar, because sugar holds water in. Um, so you got to get through that initial hump. There's a lot of ups and downs. I try to weigh
So
myself once a week at the same
yeah, keep
time in the
track.
morning. Right. Because your weight can
Yeah.
fluctuate 5 pounds a day.
Oh yeah. I keep track. Um, you talked about heart disease and stuff,
Hmm.
and there's some theories about cholesterol, good, bad. Is this reading really mean it's repairing arteries or not?
Hmm.
And one thing that I come across was a lot more has to do with stress levels.
Yes.
Chemicals released during stress. A lot has to do with lack of sleep.
Hmm.
So that was one thing that was recommended was, despite your diet and exercises, you got to get enough sleep and you got to take the stress out of your life.
Yes. Yes. And speaking on the cholesterol briefly, I've done research on that because I've been diagnosed with high cholesterol now for, ever since I was about a teenager, believe it or not. And
So that's before the
this this
protein fat
this is
diet.
this is before any of this, and before I was overweight. My research has shown that, even talking with my doctor, that the cholesterol being the cause of heart disease is wrong. Sugar, stress, these are causes of heart disease. Now, yes, does a high saturated fat diet raise your cholesterol? Yes, but you have to break down the cholesterol from the HDL, the LDL, the low density, particles. Are they the big fluffy kind of particle? Or are they the small dense ones that really get into the arteries that have inflammation? Inflammation is caused by sugar and caused by stress, lack of sleep. So a lot of these play a factor, but there's been a lot of focus and money put into scientific research to not look at sugar. Let's look at fat. And if you look in America, going back to like the 1960s and 50s, there's been this push to target on low fat diets and blame cholesterol,
But
blame
does that
saturated fat as a culprit for heart disease. And it turns out it's really sugar. That is the big thing.
Yeah, inflammation, the stress hormones, was it
Hmm.
cortisol?
Hmm. Yeah.
It's like that's the factor that causes your body to say, we need to clot some blood here. We need to accumulate on the artery walls.
Yeah, and this is really easy. If you eat a bunch of sour candy, you know, there's a video, L.A. Beast, who did a challenge of eat 50 warheads. Now these are those super sour candies, and he tried to eat
Yeah.
50 of them, and he was spitting up blood. His tongue had just completely frayed and was bleeding. Now, that's your tongue. Your tongue, as we know, is probably the most strongest muscle, singular muscle in your body. It heals quicker than anything. And imagine what that does to your arteries if it does that to your tongue. And this is within 3 to 5 minutes of just eating this amount of sugar. So it's very believable that sugar is the culprit here, not cholesterol. But I would recommend before anybody switches to a diet, do your research, consult your doctor, especially if you have medical issues. Keep in mind, fact check what your doctor says, because doctors are not nutritionists. They're pill pushers, more than likely.